Hello, everyone, and welcome back. In today's session, we will look at access control lists, which is another mechanism that we can use to control the access to your S3 bucket as well as your objects. So, as we know, your S3 is that's one of your widely used storage service that you have in your AWS, and it provides us with multiple mechanisms that we can use to manage the control, the access to your data. So in the last session, we have looked at your bucket policies, which is your JSON policies. That's one way. The other way we have is making use of your access control list, or also known as your ACL. So that's other option that we have. Now, with this, you can provide granular access control both at your object level as well as your bucket level. Now, ACL is a legacy feature that is available in your S3 bucket, and like I said, this is mainly designed to have more granular control over your data as well as your bucket. Now your S3 ACL, now that's essentially it's a set of permissions, and we can attach these permissions to your S3 bucket as well as your objects. Now these permissions, they will allow us to define who can access your data as well as what operations they can perform on your data. So the operations can be writing data to your buckets or reading the data from the S3 bucket. All those things can be controlled. So this is same as your bucket policies, but this is another option that is available. Now, although AWS recommends using IAM policies, bucket policies, or access points for most of your access control needs, ACL still plays a very important role in very specific scenarios. So AWS does not really recommend using ACLs. It recommends that we make use of your IAM policies or the bucket policies, or we have these S3 access points to basically control the access. However, there are certain scenarios where we can make use of ACLs only to control your access, right? So when we talk about the features of your ACL, so one, it can we can use this to provide a very granular access control. So we can assign these permissions at the object as well as your bucket level. So here, let's say I have an example bucket. So when we go to the permissions, so this is where we have the bucket policy. This is what we saw in the last session. Now, if you scroll down a bit further, you should be able to see your ACLs, which is your access control list. Now, this is another way that you can basically provide the permission. So we can assign these permissions at your bucket level. All right. So here you can control as to what permissions you want to give. Then you can grant access to very specific AWS accounts or any predefined group. So here, if you see, let's say we'll go ahead and click on edit. Okay, looks like this is disabled. So when you're creating the bucket, you will need to enable this. So let's go ahead and create a new bucket for this. So we'll create a new bucket, and let's say demo, and here you can see ACLs disabled. So AWS does not really recommend. But for our example, let's enable this and let's create this bucket. And okay, so let's say one. Okay, so we have our bucket over here, and now if you go to the permissions and if you go to the access control list, you can see this is now enabled. So you can, by default, the bucket owner, which is me, I will have full access to this. Now you have the option of giving access to other people. You have the option of giving access to authenticated user groups. So that's basically, everyone, or very specific access. You can control all those things. Then you can have predefined permissions. So you can assign these predefined permissions like read, write, read ACP, write ACP, and full control. So here, if you can see, we have the predefined permissions. So read access, write access, list access. All right. So these are the predefined permissions. Then it has a very simple structure. So very straightforward structure where you'll have your grantees and your permission. So very straightforward structure, unlike your bucket policies where you will need to have your policies in JSON. Then very lightweight for specific use cases, compatible with object level permission. So ideal for scenarios where you have different objects in the same bucket and you need varying level of access to these different objects. So, and it also supports your cross account access, so you can grant permissions to other AWS accounts as well. So here, like for example, here you can see access for other AWS accounts. You can add, and you can add the canonical ID and the permission. So cross account access is also available. So now this does not require any IAM roles, or it does not require any bucket policies. And this is another mechanism that we can use to basically, control the access to your data as well as your S3 buckets. So now, I told you that we have the bucket policies as well as your ACLs. Now, what's the difference between them? So, when it comes to the granular object control, ACLs can be used. It supports your granular access, but bucket policies does not support granular access. Cross-account access, we can provide cross-account access both in ACLs as well as your bucket policies. For complex conditions, ACLs does not support. So ACLs has a very simple structure, so it does not support complex conditions. But we can define our complex conditions in the bucket policies via your JSON. So, like I said, AWS does not really recommend the use of ACL. So, it is recommended to minimize your dependency on ACLs wherever it's possible, and try to use IAM policies or S3 bucket policies, as they provide more flexibility and security. So, in summary, AWS S3 ACLs are a very powerful, though somewhat legacy feature. It's a mechanism that we can use for managing permissions at the object as well as your bucket levels. While ACLs provide quick and granular access control, they are best suited for specific scenarios like object level permissions or legacy applications. For more robust and flexible access control, you should consider using IAM policies or bucket policies. Now, by understanding the strengths and limitations of S3 ACLs, you can leverage them effectively in your AWS environment to meet your application's unique needs. So that's about your ACL. So that's another mechanism that we can use to control the access to your data in your S3 buckets. That's all I have for this session. Thank you. Once again, before you leave, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.